Hey everybody, it's Mike from Fishing the Mid-South, and today we're going to answer the question, which reel should I get? So I see this question asked a lot, and today we're going to answer it. So stick around. Okay, so before we dive into what kind of reel you need, or which reel you need, we need to determine what you're trying to catch. Because if we don't know what you're trying to catch, or whether you're using braid or monofilament, then nobody can answer your question for you. Okay? So let's say that you're going to go after panfish, crappie, bluegill, stuff like that. And you're going to want to use, say, 4 to 6 pound monofilament. And I pick very specifically 4 to 6 pound. You can go lower. I don't really like anything higher than 10 pound on a spinning reel in monofilament, unless you're going after catfish and stuff like that. Okay. So what I've found is 4 pound monofilament comes off the reel so much easier, so much, just better. And I do have a favorite monofilament for 4 pound test. And by the way, there are no sponsors here. I get no kickbacks. I don't care what you buy. It's your money. Do what you want with it. And none of this came to me for free except for things that I won in contests, actually from other YouTubers. I like this Crappie Max 4 pound high vis camo. And why I like it is it has a couple of feet of high vis orange, then high vis yellow, and then clear. So you can actually use high vis line and still have a clear section to tie to your hook. Now, so for smaller fish like that, 4 pound mono or even up to 10 pound braid, I like a size 1000. This is a size 500. Well, actually, in this brand, this is the Pflueger President. It's a size 20, but it's equivalent to a size 500 in most other brands. I don't like this size reel. And the reason being, the diameter of the spool, like where the line that's on there, right? Every time one coil comes off, you get twist. You get one revolution of twist in your line. Okay. That's just physics and crap like that. So the size 1000 is not that much bigger than the size 500. And actually, I'll compare the size 25 in the President to the size 20 President reel. So, and this one also gives you 7 ball bearings, whereas the larger one gives you 10. Anyway, so I try to avoid the size 500. I've gotten most of them out of my repertoire of equipment. So I like the size 1000. Okay. Now, the reason that I'm talking about sizes of reels is the line that you use determines what size reel you need, and they do vary from manufacturer, so keep that in mind. But on each reel, usually on the spool, it'll tell you what the recommended capacities are. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use a different size line. This is a Carbonex 2000 from PC Fun. This one was one in a drawing. It says your braid capacity is 150 yards of 15 pound or 120 yards of 8 pound. Okay, now you could use 10 pound and get about mono and get about maybe 100 yards. So you could use the 6 pound and get like 140 yards. So you don't have to go by exactly what's on the spool. The other thing that you need to know is the amount of drag, right? So we'll go over drag in a moment, but those factors, how much drag you need, and the size and capacity of line that you need. So again, for panfish, you really don't need over 100 yards of line. If you're going fishing in the surf for anything under the sun, including like jack crevalle or sharks by accident, 100 yards is not going to do you. A lot of those guys can cast 100 yards. So you want plenty of line left on the spool. And I've had multiple instances where I don't know what got a hold of my line, but it grabbed it and it just kept going. And I couldn't stop it. So in any case, so you want to know what size line you're going to be using and how much of that line you're going to need. For bass, 150 yards is going to be plenty. I wouldn't go bigger than, on spinning reel, I'd try to stay 10 or below, but you can go higher if you want to. Okay. If you're using braid, then braid is a much more supple line. Line twist doesn't matter as much, or much at all. The big thing is when your line comes off, it has to hit that first reducing guide or stripper guide on your rod, and that's what's going to make the coils get smaller so that they come out the small eye at the end. And you typically want the diameter of the lip of the spool to be about twice the size of that first stripper guide, or the stripper guide needs to be half the size of this. The inside diameter versus the outside diameter of this, right? So that's going to get you to the size of reel you need. If you are using, depending on whatever line you're using, the typical rule of thumb is about 30 to 40% of the line rated strength is what you need in drag. So if you're using 10-pound line, 3-4 pounds of drag is plenty. People don't really understand how much pulling they're doing on those. Now, you can go higher in drag. There's no reason to stay away from a higher level of drag. It's just that if you're going to be using 80-pound line, you don't want 6 pounds of drag. I know, bad example, but you get the idea. So, as you move into, for instance, catfishing. Catfishing, people are going to want to use typically 20-pound or larger diameter line, or larger strength line. So for 20-pound mono, and I'll show you, I've got one of my reels here is an ugly stick reel that came with a combo. It shows a line capacity of 8 pounds of 240 yards, 10 pounds 210 yards, 12 pounds 175 yards. So that means if you run it down to like 15 pounds, you're going to get 140 maybe. This is not going to be big enough for 20-pound line. You're going to want to go to a size 4,000 in most reels. Okay. Like I said, this is this is actually a 40. So, it depends on the brand of the reel. This particular one is not at 12 pounds, 165. Yeah, it's really just a little too small. Trying to think if I have, yeah, I gave away my size 40 President. So I can't show that one to you. Now, then you can get into bigger stuff, right? So this is the OTSR 5000 here and the 6000 here. They don't sell them anymore. They're really good saltwater reels, but in any case, so like something like this will tell you it can take only less braid, actually. It's saying 30-pound braid, 450 yards. Obviously, mono would be less than that. So you may want to look into something larger than a size 40, maybe a 4500, or which 40 and 4000 are the same. 4500, 5000, 5500. You can go up into 12,000 in spinning reels if you're chasing monster sharks. But we're talking about freshwater or saltwater surf fishing for all practical purposes in this video. So once you figure out the size of line that you need, then, well, which brand do I need? Well, like I said, you want to check the amount of drag. It's listed on the box, or the packaging. It'll tell you how much drag it has. So you want to make sure that you're at least, 30, 40, maybe even 50% of that strength of the line in drag. So here's the low end. This is going to be the Shimano Sienna, and this particular one is a size 1000. So in this, I believe this is a plastic composite. It's not an inexpensive reel. It's maybe $30. It's not the greatest reel. If you do get an inexpensive reel and you find that when you cast, the bail automatically closes, well, what happens is, and this one won't do it because I've already fixed it, the inertia will push the handle forward, which then closes the bail. I do have a video. I'll link it in the description of how to do this exact thing so that you can open the bail and it will not close. So you close it by hand, which is what you're supposed to do anyway. So this is going to be your $30 price point. Now, I'm talking about your major brands, the brands you can go touch in stores. Okay. I do have a PC Fun Viper X here in size 1000 and a size 2000 in the Carbon X. I have not gotten to use these yet, but I am excited to try them. I just won these recently from Hitch by Hitch. He did a drawing and I won. These reels, I don't have the price on them because I didn't buy them myself, but I think they're anywhere to the 30 to 60 range. Okay. And PC Fun has actually a very good selection of price points. My favorite reel for panfish, and I would get this in a larger size if I needed it, and that is the Daiwa Regal LT. LT stands for light tough. The downside to these reels, or the plus side, as the case may be, they only come in deep spool. So like this is a 1000D. The D is for deep spool. That means it's going to hold a lot more line than you need it to. So like this one is going to hold, let's see, it says 4-pound mono, 160 yards versus the Shimano Sienna. Four pounds, 140 yards. So did I read that? Let me make sure I get that correctly. Oh, sorry, I lied to you. That was 6 pounds. So 4-pound is 250 yards versus 4-pound. Come back here, Mike, and $140. So this one, I mean, they're the same general size reels. This deep spool holds a lot more. There's a lot of wasted line on the spool. But I really like these reels. When I got them, they were about 60. They may be a little bit more now. Again, it's going to be a composite body. But I really like these 10 ball bearings in these. Very nice reels. The Pflueger President. Again, this is a size 25, which I say is comparable to the size 1000. This one is talking 110 yards of 4-pound line. Interestingly enough, the 4-pound mono on this one's 100 yards. This one, I think I said 110. See, it's braid. Yeah, so 110. So even though this is a size 20 versus a size 25, the spool on this is not as shallow, or is more shallow, I should say, not as deep. So it only holds 10 pounds more of 4-pound mono than its little brother. And again, you get 3 more ball bearings with that. That's going to be about a $60 reel as well. So between the two, the Regal LT is my favorite, definitely. You can look in, and so Shimano has, again, various prices. Daiwa, various prices. Pflueger, various prices. PC Fun, PISCIFUN, various prices. You can find them on PCFun.com. Of course, you can find Shimano.com and Daiwa.com and all that. But I talk about PC Fun. You can't touch them in stores. You have to order them online, either through Amazon or their own site or maybe a couple other sites. So that gets us through what size, right? And then we're looking at features. I talked about 10 ball bearings versus 7 ball bearings. Does it matter? No, not really. You know, a lot of companies will hide ball bearings in the handle. Well, that's great, but does it need to be there? No, it's just a way to get that bearing count up. I mean, you could glue them to the outside of the reel and you'd still have the same, have more bearings, but it doesn't do anything. While we're talking about the PC Funs, I believe that these are all, plastic or composite. Same. You can get into a metal body reel. They cost more. They weigh more. So weight is also going to be a big concern on these. And this ugly stick, it came with a combo. Again, plastic. I think it's 3 bearings. So 2 plus 1, actually. They always do the plus 1. One is the roller bearing / anti-reverse bearing, and the others are just ball bearings. So it's probably going to have one on the handle, one on the shaft, and then the anti-reverse bearing. These ugly stick, I've heard decent things about these ugly stick reels. Again, it comes on a combo for $40. On sale, of course. Not necessarily a bad thing to check out. So, the other features you want to look out for, or may not want to look out for. So, this Viper X, you'll notice it does not have an anti-reverse switch. This is the previous generation of the PC Fun President series. The current version does not have the anti-reverse switch, and what that's for is to allow you to go both ways. I have never, other than just playing, never needed that. Never needed the spool to roll backwards. But take it for what it is. And what that is, though, it's another place that water can get in, and these aren't sealed. You'd like for them to be, they're not. But it's just one more place that water can get in, and you don't want that. So in many cases, every case for me, that anti-reverse switch is nothing but added nothingness. You want something that is going to be smooth, and I mean everything's smooth when you do this in the store, right? And that noise that you're hearing, if you hear it, that's because the line is longer here, and it's hitting the spool as it goes around, or the bail. Your bail wire, I think it's a plastic coated metal. Most of them are going to be metal. Even on this, oh, that's the carbon. Sorry. Well, even on this ugly stick, I mean, it's still metal. You just want something that's going to hold up. You also want to know what your gear ratio is. So this one's 5.2 to 1. That tells you every turn of the handle. And I need to get one that's already been converted over. So for every turn of the handle, and does this one say it's a 6.2 to 1? So let's watch. We're starting here at the back. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.2. There you go. So for every revolution of this handle, your bail, or your, we'll call it the bail at this point, your line is going to wrap around the spool 6 times. Or 6.2 actually. You can get them in lower gear ratio, you can get them in higher gear ratio, and of course the inches per turn in retrieve rate is based upon that and the diameter of the spool itself. Now, if you're going to go surf fishing or in saltwater, I would get a saltwater rated reel. And what those are going to do, and again, these were awesome, they don't make them anymore, sadly. These have 13 seals on them. So like there's a seal here, there's a seal over here, there's a seal under here, there's a seal where the shaft moves up and down into the body, and then there's several more. If you're going to go saltwater, get a saltwater rated reel. You don't have to get the most expensive one out there. Okay. For saltwater, I like Penn reels, P-E-N-N. And the reason I like Penn, so they're not the lightest. They're not going to be the smoothest. And by that I mean the buttery smooth. They're fine. The problem is Daiwa makes saltwater reels, but they use something called, I think it's MagSeal. It's a type of magnetic grease that they put on their bearings, and that's all well and good until you need to service it. And how do you get magnetic grease off of bearings? Like Baker magnet, I guess? I don't know. And like I say, it's great until you need to work on it, until you need to clean things up inside, and because you're still going to get the saltwater stuff, still going to get inside. It's just supposed to not get in the bearings, in theory, because hydrophobic properties of grease and oil and all that kind of stuff. But you can get a Penn Pursuit 4. You can get a Penn Fierce. You can get the Penn Battle. You can get the Penn Spinfish. And the Spinfish is more expensive than Battles and kind of a higher price point too. But you can get the Gambit in pretty much any brand of spinning reels. Now we'll do another video on casting reels, bait casters. But for the beginning series, I thought that the spinning reels were the most important. And of course, you're going to need a rod for that. So I'm going to do a video on rods here soon. And again, it's going to be, there'll be brands mentioned, but it's brand agnostic. I don't care what brand you buy. I want to show you some of the features you need to look out for. Anyway, that's everything for this video, folks. Thanks for watching. Again, if you want to learn about how to stop this problem, and let's see if I can, yeah, so this one's, it's kind of a perfect storm. You have to have it wanting to, you have to have, you know, like the handle back here, and then it's a perfect storm of things. But once your bail closes on you when you cast, and your rig goes flying off, and you're stuck here holding nothing but shame, you'll understand. Again, I'll link that in the description. It's a pretty simple fix. Thanks for watching, folks. We will see you on the next video.